Okay, so this is my first recording ever. Um, it's gonna be put on YouTube, but yeah, basically the point of this video is me explaining why I want to leave the academy. As you can tell, I'm at the United States Air Force Academy right now. Just finished my first year. Went through basic, went through the whole academic year, and basically at about April, actually maybe even late March. It was after I came back from spring break. I came back from spring break and I had a really good time in spring break. Now, granted, I didn't do a lot. You know, went to Florida, went to the beach, got to see my grandparents, um, freaking rode jet skis. Like, it wasn't a super active vacation, which is, kind of what a vacation is supposed to be. But what I realized, after being there for whatever it was, 9 or 10 days, and having to come back here, is I realized how great cadet life was, or how great civilian life was, and how hard it is being here. And I didn't really realize that when I went away, because I only went away two other times. The other two other times was when I went back home for Thanksgiving, and when I went back home for winter break. I had, it was like December 9th through like January 2nd off. Um, and so yeah, when I came back, so this was like, and like winter break, it's cool and all, but it's like, especially I'm from New York, and you're upstate New York, it's cold during the winter, it gets super dark, and it's seasonal depression, but it's like this in Colorado as well. Although it's bigger fluctuations in the temperature. Like there's times this past winter where it was like freaking 60, maybe even sometimes 70 during the day, but the next the next day it'd be 40 degrees, and then the day after that you get down to like 10. I don't know if it ever got down to zero, like, but yeah. So going back to you know winter break was great and all, but I was focusing more on being with my family, because this was the first time I've been back in my house besides Thanksgiving in whatever 4 or 5 months. I left for the academy in June, so I don't know how long that is. I guess June is, yeah. So like 5.5 months I've been away, and so came back. It was a good time, but I didn't really focus on anything else. All the opportunities that were left on the table when I was there just really was just focusing on catching back up with the people who I left, and I didn't have the best opportunities to swim here at the academy, so I went back to my old swim team and swim with them. And at the end of my time during winter break, I had this, I don't know what kind of sickness it was, but it was this, I couldn't even describe it. It was more of like I think it was just because I changed altitude, and I don't know, I was getting um, super tired, and my head was like pounding, and I couldn't even describe the feeling because I don't even remember it that well. But it was like it was forcing me to just stay in bed for like the last week and a half of my break, which really sucked, because I couldn't do what I wanted. Um, so yeah, I came back here and I was fine within a week or two, and I think part of it was the altitude difference, coming from whatever 7,000 feet down to pretty much sea level. So getting back to what originally sparked my reason to leave was spring break. I had a really good time. It was, well, the spring in Florida is really the summertime everywhere else, and had a really great time. Got burnt because I don't believe in sunscreen. um, and yeah, I just realized how good it was to be a civilian, especially since I got to drive. I feel like driving is the best way, at least for me, to express my freedom, especially when you don't have a lot. and so I was able to drive on while I was on vacation. So I came back here, and it's like every time you come back, it gets worse. I guess it's like, you're away from the academy, and even when you're away, it's like you're still thinking about all the shit that comes here. And you can never really take your mind off at the end of the day. Something that's in the back of your head that you're constantly worrying about. Um, and so that's what makes coming back so hard. Um, and every time it gets harder, and it's like, ugh. But that really sparked my idea to leave. And really, like, besides that, the reason why I did want to leave, mainly, there was a lot of reasons. I think, there's probably three or four big reasons. One is I want to become an entrepreneur, and I knew here not only like was it going to be hard, but it might also be impossible just due to the rigors of being a cadet. I think a lot of people don't realize how hard it is being here. A lot of your time is consumed, especially during the academic year, just doing military stuff, academic stuff, squadron stuff, um, all these different things that and it might not be something like you're delegated to, like you might not have like an actual thing that you need to be doing, but there's stuff, like making sure you shine your shoes, you're ironing your uniform, or getting your room ready for the next upcoming week, because we have to have our rooms in specific layout during the academic year. And so it's stuff like that that definitely takes away time from what you want to do at the end of the day. um, and a lot of that time could be used trying to become an entrepreneur. And here I published my first website ever, and that was a huge thing for me. It was a very tough process because I had almost no knowledge going in, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna figure it out. And so it probably took 50 hours to put this website up, um, which is, looking back on it, is an insane amount of time. However, getting it to actually work was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had being here and just in my life in general. There was a lot of effort put into it. And it's something I physically created myself that everyone in the whole world can see. You look up the website and everyone can see it. So I published my first website, and then I went on to make two others, one for a friend, and then one was more of a personal website to get my name out there. Um, and then I've also, all of this, which I've never had any experience with, and I kind of just figured out while being here. And so then I also figured, I also was what I'm working on currently is an AI, and it's vastly different from the AIs that you think of now, like, you know, um, OpenAI or ChatGPT, Claude, you know, all these different AIs, Gemini. It's vastly different in the infrastructure, and that's why I've invested so much time and resources. But it's personal. Like, it's also so it can run on this MacBook that I'm recording right here. It can run on that, um, which is pretty cool. It is a little bit slower, but it doesn't have any of the rules or regulations. It's more of a personal assistant, um, and it can trade stocks for you. It can write a book for you. It can summarize notes for you. It provides you with a whiteboard. It can clone your voice. There's a lot of things that can do, and it's really more of a personal assistant, and I don't even know what to name it yet. But it's, yeah, like I said, it's unrestricted, so it's, I can research or look up anything, prompt AI to look up anything, and it'll look it up to me and give it back to me, which is really cool because a lot of these AIs have such big restrictions and parameters. So to continue on building this AI, probably about 80% done, and really what's prohibiting me is I got all this other stuff to worry about, and I also want to get an actual computer to run it on, which is probably going to cost 10K or so, um, which I'm gonna have to find some money somewhere to buy the parts and stuff to build the PC or the computer in order to run it. And then hopefully after that, the goal is to publish it. And I don't know if I want to make it free or not. Obviously there has to be some sort of cost in order for me, to actually run it. That I need to charge the users. But the good thing is, the infrastructure about this AI is vastly different than all the other AIs, and there's very low startup costs and costs in general in order to run it. Like I said, you can even, if I shared it with someone, they could run it on their own computer, as long as it's not 5 years old or something. They could probably run it on their computer. And so yeah, basically I'm gonna publish it, or try to publish it, and see where that takes me. And this AI can really just outperform all the other ones. It's something that a lot of people haven't seen and aren't ready for, and I don't really want to talk a lot of specifics on it, because I don't want people coming in here watching this and then stealing my idea and then creating a patent on it. But moving onwards, creating this AI, and I just published an app. Um, and actually, my mom helped me with the idea, which I'm thankful for. But basically, general gist is that it helps online grocery shoppers, people who shop online. They get their groceries online. If they do Amazon, Kroger, Target, Walmart, whatever, Price Chopper, Hannaford. Um, Basically, you scan the barcode of the grocery that you've already, put in the trash, you already used, and it'll automatically upload it to your cart, whatever you shop with. Not only that, but it'll give you like the health and nutrition facts of the thing. Like, it does state it on there, but it also gives you like a score of how good the food is, and what makes it good, what makes it bad. And then it gives you, like, it connects to your health app, um, and it gives you like if, let's say, you have a goal, like you want to get to whatever 180 pounds. It'll help you suggest tips and stuff to get to that goal. And let's say you're 160, provide things higher in carbs and proteins, and um, like stuff like that. And then it also tracks, obviously, how much it costs. So if you're on a budget, let's say you want to do $500 a month is your monthly expenditure for your groceries, and it'll provide budgeting tips, like cheaper alternatives or stuff like that, for you to reach those goals as well. And so that's on the App Store right now. It's called Scan to Cart, like Scan to Cart. So really, I've just exploded in that territory. And like I said, I didn't know anything, and it took so much time and effort. And it's all these firsts that take so much time and effort. But at the end of the day, that's what helps you get to your second and your third. And it's unlikely for your first thing to be the greatest invention ever. And whatever it is, the first time you do a sport, it's not like you get good on the first day and you're the greatest. Like, you got reps and sets at the end of the day is what's going to make it valuable, and you're worthwhile and successful. So really, this entrepreneur thing, I'm super fired up about. I got, these are only whatever, all these are like 4 ideas out of like the 30 I have in total. And some of them are a lot bigger than this, and some of them are a lot smaller than this. But that's something that really gets me going, is because I can't focus on one subject. Like, I'm interested in everything. I love learning. And so that's why entrepreneurism really appeals to me. And it's kind of like, if you're a kid and you're building something, like you're building a fort, it's that same thing, but you're building it for the world. Um, so entrepreneurism, that's my main reason why I wanted to leave, is because I felt like my creativity was stifled. Felt like, there's a lot of time wasted that I could be used doing that. And I wanted financial freedom. And then another thing was, you know, I was super like, as a, person and as a white male in general, I'm heavily, I guess, influenced by politics. And um, ultimately, like, I wanted to create some sort of talk show. Like, obviously I can't run in politics at 19. um, I have to wait until 25 to even be considered to run for Congress. um, but I want to do something in politics. Politics affects your daily life, and there's a lot going on in the world today. And it's super important to take a stand in that. If you just sit by the wayside and let your country go disarray, then that's on you as a person. You and a lot of people think, oh, one person is going to affect everything. That's the most BS I've ever heard. There's been so many people just single-handedly who affect the whole world. um, and so really I want to pursue. I'm not going to voice my opinion on here because I'm still part of the DOD. And ultimately, like, what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to create a talk show. And yeah, I can't be politically charged like I wanted it to. um, but I can still give factual lessons at the end of the day. um, and really try to create a rallying point, that's non-biased, that can make this country better. um, so that was, yeah, entrepreneurism, political, some career in politics, starting off as maybe a political influencer, and then going into some sort of politician role. And even now, like, I'm still hoping for that politician role. Like, definitely see myself going into politics. Now I don't know if that'll be state governor, congressman, or even president. um, we're gonna have to wait to see. I'm definitely interested in all of those. um, but then there was also, like, the fact that this place it's hard being here, like I said. And there's not a lot of freedom. Like, especially your freshman year, like, you're restricted to base a lot. And you have to do all these things, and you're not really allowed to ask questions and stuff, and you gotta follow like a strict thing. And like, there's a lot of rules and regulations upon freshmen compared to your next 3 years here. um, and so those three things combined was like, the freedom and, like, the lack of opportunities that I felt while being here in my first year. But it was also, I wouldn't even say that. Like, there was also like a stuff where it's like I didn't really feel like this place reciprocated the energy that I gave it while I was here. Um, I volunteered a lot. Uh, I did a lot of work for our squad. Um, I'm highly ambitious, highly driven, and I didn't feel like that was totally reciprocated or even just respected. Um, and granted, there were some people who did appreciate what I brought to this place and what I was doing, but that didn't speak for most people, and definitely not everyone. Um, so yeah, those are my reasons to leave. And honestly, it's like, if you're looking at it, and you want to leave this place, a lot of people leave here, and the reason why they leave here is because they have an abundance of opportunities, right? So there's this psychological perspective where it's like, if you're at a bakery and you see all these treats lined up, it's like, gosh, which one do I pick? And you even, like, going into like an ice cream shop, it's the same thing. It's like, which one do I pick? And it's super hard to pick because all of these options seem so great. And it's the abundance of options, theory slash mentality. And so this creates, this inability to choose, this indeterminacy. And so that's kind of, and that only happens when there's good options, right? Um, like if there's bad options, you're gonna select the best one of the bad options. But for me, it's like, especially if you weight them all equally, you weight all these good options equally. It feels, it's like no matter what decision you make, you're always gonna be like, whoa, what happens if I selected that other one, right? Um, what would have happened if I selected that one? Would I be better off? And so you're always gonna compare. And people say it's like, oh, you can't look the other direction. Well, it's like, why not? Why can't you look the other direction? And it's human nature to look the other direction because you always want a better life, right? And if you go down this one path and it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to, then obviously you're going to be looking over at the path you could have gone down, and but like, I should have gone down that one, and that's like a common thing as they jump ship for a lot of people. However, the most important thing is you staying on that path, regardless of how ugly it gets. You know, at the end of the day, it's I wouldn't say the path doesn't matter, but it's how much effort you put into that path. And really, I'm a firm believer of you don't really need a plan B in life. If you attack plan A and you give it everything, and nothing will stand in your way of that plan. Nothing will stand in your way if you just keep attacking. And you're gonna fail a lot of times, right? And you're gonna keep hitting this failure. But like I said, I had the same problem when I was trying to do these publish these websites and make this AI and make this iOS app. Is I think, oh, I'm this close, and then I'll get there and I'll be like, fuck, and then I'd have another 20% to go, and then or I'll try to publish it and it would be like some error or something, like some HTML error in the code, and it'd be like, god damn. And at those times, you have to remember, if you quit now, then all of it's wasted. However, if you continue to go down that path, then there's this opportunity for even bigger growth and even bigger success. So ultimately, it doesn't really matter what path you go down, as long as something that's substantial, something that's successful in long term. And so, yeah, let me get back to what I was going for. Is so when coming back from spring break, I was really adding all these things up, and I was looking at it, and I probably was like 95% sure I wanted to leave this place. And my goal was I want to go to Embry-Riddle. I want to go to Embry-Riddle, have more free time, probably a good chance of being able to get an apartment off base. And so that, like, I wanted to get some guns. I wanted to, go to some rodeos. I wanted to go to some basketball games. I wanted to own a truck. I wanted to own a motorcycle. I really wanted to fulfill, what it meant to be a real American. And so that's, I wanted all these things that I haven't experienced. And during my life in high school, I kind of suppressed my ability to go out and build social connections and really explore life. And there's a bigger backstory on why that was. Basically, to get into it, and throughout my high school and throughout my middle school and half of my high school career, I didn't have the best experience. I'll put that bluntly. Like, we don't have to get into specific details, but I really didn't like going to school every day. Yeah, granted, I like seeing the people, but there was a lot of people who outright hated me, and it made going to school very hard. And I struggled a lot with relationships, especially early on. And so that made me place a lot of value in more materialistic and personal things. And you know, during those years, I would place high value, super high value in um, in academics and athletics, and athletics were a huge thing to me. Um, and so, but the problem was, even though I placed so much value in this, was that half my life felt full and half of it felt empty, right? You know, you go to school, you do super well, you get an A on your test because you practice so hard. And then, you go to your track meet or you go to your swim meet and you just crush the competition. And then, but what you realize after that is there's not a lot of people congratulating you for your accomplishment or what you did. And you just kind of feel empty and isolating inside. And you know, it was especially hard because whatever it was, seventh grade to ninth grade, we had this COVID BS, and that made it extremely hard because obviously it was even more isolating, and we didn't go to school. Like there was one year we didn't go to school at all, and then one year was like we went to school, 2 out of 3 days a week, and so that made it even harder for me just because I was so disconnected before, but now it's like I'm 100% disconnected. And that was a very hard time in my life, sixth grade through 10th grade. And to like, I had so many insecurities and stuff like that. Um, but so yeah, it was this unbalancedness that really kind of tore me up and made me place this value in materialistic, individualistic things, and that's what made me grow more towards that area. Um, and so, but I got super good at athletics. Like now, for some reason, I wasn't the best at running, but I was still super good at swimming and triathlons. And jumping forward to triathlons, like I was ranked whatever top 10 in the nation like 2 years in a row from my age. Um, and so it was, and training for triathlons in New York was super hard because during the winter time I didn't have a running team or a biking team that I could have joined and had trainer rides with or run with. And so basically a lot of that time was spent in my basement on the treadmill, um, on the uh, on the trainer all alone. And with the seasonal depression and this whole unbalanced side of me, like there was just part of me that was just straight up missing, like I had no growth in that area. It really made it hard. Um, and I'll be honest, like especially in triathlons, like I didn't always feel like I was the one, participating. Like I love the sport, but I'm not gonna name names, but there are definitely some outside people in my, who I there's just people in my life who wanted me, I think at least for me, like wanted me to succeed and at all costs possible or just try my best. And there was a lot of harsh conversations about me continuing, and it really didn't feel like at the end of the day like me competing. It was me competing. And it just felt so forced, and that's ultimately like why I left. And it's like, you're in the top 10 in the nation. It's like, well, I give up. It's like it's not that simple. And I mean, I guess it is that simple. It's just I felt pressured to do something that I loved, and so therefore I didn't feel like I loved it anymore. Um, and so now it's like I'm growing back to this triathlons that I originally loved, and I see a possible future with me doing it again. I will admit, like it was super mentally challenging, and without that without that environment of this 100% unbalanced self and this triathlons, like it's so mentally challenging. It's a huge endurance sport, and without that triathlon aspect, I think I would have totally just crumbled, um, sixth grade through 10th grade. And I'm glad I didn't. And, that's why I think there's, this superior person, God per se, who's, guiding me through this path. Um, and so there were a lot of dark times. And what really pulled me out of that was the respect I was gaining. As I placed higher value on this athletics piece, I was growing more. And even in 10th grade, I was still a boy. Like, I never matured as much as my peers. I was always late to the party for maturing, um, which may have been why I was late to the party for socialization as well. Um, so 10th grade, quit quit triathlons and went all in on swimming. I even quit track and cross country, which I was doing at the varsity level as well. And so I went all in. I mean, I was watching films, like I was in the pool 6 7 days a week compared to the 3 4 days a week that I was doing when I was doing triathlons. And I was weightlifting. I was still a freaking skinny ass twig. Um, but then I was like reading books like Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and doing all these things to really set myself apart, because my 10th grade year swimming, I don't know, I was probably, top 3 or 4 on the swim team. And we had a really strong, like, my class was super strong. I had like 11 or 12 kids in my class, like my year. And so it was, a lot faster than all of the other years before and after it, just on paper. And even though the year ahead of mine, I guess if I'm sophomore, the juniors, they were pretty good. But not only was there not a lot of them, they just they on paper they weren't as good. And so, after I quit triathlons, it placed a lot of emphasis on swimming. And like I would cross train, and so even though I was struggling with, this social aspect that was still never really there, there is this respect that was growing for me while this was happening. And even though it gave me a little bit more support, social support, for me to keep going. um it's a long conversation, but trying to wrap this up. And so basically I placed a lot of emphasis, and I grew exponentially those next 2 years. 11th and 12th grade was the first time I made it to states. Not only did I make it to states for one event, I made it for three, and then the following year I made it for four. Um, and I would cross train. Like, there'd be times in the winter. Well, during the season, every day I'd wake up at 5:30. I'd go out for a 30 to 45 minute run. And keep in mind, we're in New York and it's in the winter time, right? You're going from November to February, and even early March. And I would get up in the morning at 5:30. I would run. And it was all because of this book by David Goggins. But I'd get up and I'd run, and I was just so afraid of not doing good enough that there'd be times where I was going crazy. But there'd be times where I'd be running and I would openly just like run, and then dive onto the ground. And it would either be like full of snow, full of ice, full of just wet leaves. And I wouldn't have a shirt on. Like, all I had was short shorts on and nothing else, and shoes, I guess, and a watch, but nothing else. Like, I'd be bare. Like, my whole chest was bare. And the reason for that was to mentally challenge myself already more than what I had. And so then after the run, I don't know how I didn't get sick from this. After the run, I would come back, I'd take a cold shower, and then I'd have breakfast, and then I'd go to school and start my day. And then I'd have swim practice from 3:30 to whatever 7, and then I'd come back and then I'd weight train, and a lot of the weight training was obviously upper body, and really I didn't implement this my 11th grade year, but my 12th grade year I would weight train, and the key exercise that I did was lat pull overs. It trains your strength enormously, and my endurance. I saw declines in my endurance because I wasn't training for triathlons. Now I would still run and stuff, but I wasn't doing these same distances, and so I really saw a superb amount of strength and power gains, and so I quickly developed from this long distance dude, even because I was super lanky and stuff, and I still am, and but I quickly developed into this 50 freestyle powerhouse, and 2 years ago I could never see myself doing the 50 free, and I was just ass at it as well, but I spent a lot of time looking at videos of the 50 freestyle and all these people doing it, and I realized that I need to improve my technique as well. So I'd go to the Y on Saturdays and Sundays and improve my technique, improve my power, and I'd do these 12.5 yard sprints. I would stick my feet in the gutter and practically just spin my arms, which would tear up my feet. I would put on these leggings. They kind of look like fishnet leggings, which is a little bit yeah. I won't say that, but didn't look the best. But the whole purpose was drag in order to increase the power and the muscular endurance. So I'm still getting back to it, and so I placed a lot of, and so 11th and 12th grade year I gained a lot of respect, in the swimming realm, but also in my social realm because I was doing so well athletically. And then I hit a big PR in track. And so, like, I think it was my ninth grade year, I was so close to breaking sub 5. I was like 5:04, and for me, I just could never find the ability to go sub 5. And so my 12th grade year, signed up for track, spring track, and my goal was to go sub 5. Um, and the first whatever I think I only got put in the mile like 3 times, and I don't know if this was my last time. I remember it. So I got put into the previous time and didn't do well. Like I went like 5:10, and it felt so hard to break this threshold of going sub 5, and then I don't know what happened, but the second or the third time I did it, I just was just on fire. I went out at it was like a 2:15. 2:15 I went out for the first 800, which is like if you double that then you're at 4:30. I was feeling my Wheaties out. So went out like 2:15. I was ahead of everyone, and it probably wasn't the smartest thing, but I was feeling good. Like, if there was any way for me to break this 5-minute barrier, it was going to be about me going out hard. And I was always, a person who paced, consistently. I would be going, 75, 75, 75, 75. And so I was confident in my ability to maintain that pace relatively. Obviously going out a little bit harder, you're going to have that positive, positive second half, time-wise, instead of a negative split. But I could, I was out in the front the whole time, and I could hear the people behind me, but I was slowly pulling away. And this is what I hate about track is they, and even cross country, is these people who just sit and kick. It's like, if you have your energy up until the last, 400, 200 meters, 100 meters. It's like, what are you doing? Like in swimming, there's no, there's not really such thing as a sit and kick. It's, you give it your fucking all. Um, so 400, we got 400 meters left. I'm still in the lead, but I can definitely feel it, and I'm just at this point, I'm just trying to hang on. I know, if I hang on this last lap, I can break 5, and I hear them coming up behind me. I'm like, oh fuck, and they, it's like I'm on the 150, so I'm on the straightaway, and there's just this freaking 4 or 5 dudes come screaming by me. They're doing their kick. They come by me, and I was like, ah. And I try my best, and at this point the lactic acid is going hard. I can barely keep my eyes from going over from shutting. Like I'm literally about to pass out. And the last 250 meters was brutal, and I think the last 100 had to be at least probably 20 seconds because I was just jogging on air at that point. But I got a 451. I was super proud. 9 seconds below, so it wasn't even like, oh, you got below 5 minutes by that much, and a lot of people never have the chance to go below 5:0. So we went off on this huge tangent. Let me reel it back in. So long story short, I get this respect, but I don't get this social aspect. And coming here, I think is the same thing. All these, this high school mentality, all these people, trying to seek attention, trying to outcompete, super insecure, will do whatever is necessary to put someone else down just to make themselves feel better. And I think the same thing is here. And I didn't have the best 29er squad, or freshman squad, I guess, which made me still have that same idea, same concept. And it wasn't so like the first 9, 10 months here, I didn't really open that much up, and I didn't really look for a lot of social connections. And part of that was because I also have this innate thing where whenever I'm trying to hang out with someone, I think, or just a group of people, for most of the people that I hang out with, not only does it feel fake and forced, it also feels like they're less than me, and it's like I feel shitty about it. But it's like, and people might not like me for that, but I can't really control it. It's kind of a innate thing, and obviously over time you can slowly improve upon that. But it's not like, oh, now I'm friends with Jimmy John over here, and he freaking smokes weed and shit, but while I'm doing this shit, it's like. And it also goes back to that concept of you're a reflection of the 5 closest people to you. If all your friends are drug dealers, and there's a high probability that you are one too. Not saying that it's 100% definite, but there's a high probability. And so yeah, that's why I never really. And in high school, there's a lot of drinking, a lot of smoking, especially in our high school. So yeah, I didn't really pursue a lot of social relationships, and I talked a lot with this squadron peer that I had, and I'm really thankful that I had this person, because honestly, I definitely would have left the academy. But she had helped me have this big paradigm shift in how I approached relationships, and had a more positive and open mindset towards people. And this place isn't like high school, and I kind of just got unlucky with the way the dice rolled. And so I quickly changed my mindset, and was more positive, more open-minded. And it was also good because we're in the summer now, so like a lot more people are more happy, more outgoing. They have less to worry about. And so basically, once I changed my mindset, I made all these social connections. And I also understood that you don't have to have these super deep connections, right? You don't have to be super vulnerable, and tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. And it can still be like surface level and stuff, and that was hard for me to understand as well. But once I was able to understand that, like I said, made all this social progress, made growth in these 1 to 2 months after the fact that I haven't had in the past 5 years. Um, and then so yeah, and so basically when I was in the Form 34 process, all these people, I probably had 40 different conversations and definitely over 100 hours of talking with people, and people want to understand my why for leaving the academy. And you know what I realized was these people don't like they're not only here for the why, they're here for me, right? um and that was the first time I realized that, wow, 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 like these people are here for me. Like I never, besides my parents, I never really experienced something like that, or just besides my family in general. um and it really was emotional per se, because it's like, it's like, when you're struggling, and you just have someone to pick you back up. um and so all these people wanted to know why I wanted to leave, and I shared specific details of some and left out some from others, and vice versa. But no decision at the end of the day was going to help me, or no conversation was going to help me make my decision to stay here. And but what I realized was that that time invested in me from other people was part of the deciding factor. And so originally, so I was, going back to, I was 90% sure I wanted to leave. And what really started my spark on staying here was I went to this, when you go from a freshman to a sophomore, you change squadrons. Then you're in the squadron for the next 3 years. And so I'm going into this next squadron, and, you know, it was vastly different in the culture and the environment, but also the people there. They had positive energy. They really, and it's because they integrate this culture where it's like, you're here at the end of the day to help someone else out. You're not here to do the best on your exam. So it's like if someone comes to you and let me check the battery. Oh, we're good. Someone comes to you and you have a test the next day, but this person's on your doorstep crying. You're going to give fuck all about the test. You know, at the end of the day, this person matters a lot more than that test. Um, and that's a super hard thing because there's a lot of places that don't understand that concept of, people are way more important than a test. And so they have this, so it's like they have this culture that's precedent. It's precedent, and I don't know how this works, but it's like you can't really be fully accepted in this squadron unless you accept that culture. And that's a super nice thing. Is you need to integrate into that culture, because if you don't, right, if you don't integrate into that culture won't be passed down. Um, which is why it's super important to integrate into that culture. And so really, we were at this ice cream social. It was an introduction for the incoming, sophomores into the squadron. And so these people were super nice, and it was, I don't know if I mentioned, this is ice cream social, and you know had, well, I guess it was like a root beer float, but I wasn't into the root beer, so I just had ice cream. And my friend from, I guess you could say friend, but from this past squadron that I was in came with me. Um, it was a little embarrassing because he kind of like aired me out, but I think it also helped me make a lot of connections that I wouldn't have, because I was still in this state of, being super friendly. And at the same time, I kind of felt, guilty and shitty about it, because I knew I was leaving. And here I was, and I wasn't here for the ice cream. Like, I didn't care about the ice cream. Like, I wanted to make some more connections, just because I had this new shift going on. Um, and so I wasn't able to make all the connections I wanted to, but after this, like the event, we went back to the actual like squadron AOR, like the area. So like you see like that over there. So there's like different hallways have different squadrons. Um, so we went back and it was, I don't know, they're like so where the event was held was different from like the actual squadron area. So I went back, went to CQ, which is basically what CQ is this desk in the middle of the squadron, in the middle of the hallway, and their job is just make sure everything is going fine, running smoothly, like 24/7, which 99% of the time does. So like the job. Um, but went back, and what was super surprising, and I was still with this friend who came with me from my squadron before, and so we were at this CQ desk, and there was this, I think it was 28 or so, she's a sophomore, and what I realized was like we just went up to her, it was super random, but the way she reciprocated that energy was super nice, and she kind of turned it into a nice chat. And then the other people came back, like the leadership team came back from the event that we were just having, and they were stopping by the CQ, and I was able to have a more in-depth conversation with them about why I was wanting to leave. And that conversation and that event had this spark that I feel like I didn't have the best time per se my first year, and there was hope for a better future here at USAFA, and part of that was because of the people. So that was where the spark initially started, um, and so getting in. So as I got closer to the actual, Form 34. Form 34 means your decision to leave. It's this paperwork they have to do in order to be officially out processed or leaving. And so it takes whatever, a month, maybe 2 months. So I started it mid-April, and so as I got closer and closer to the day of when I was actually gonna leave, I was gonna leave this past Saturday. Today's whatever, Tuesday, Wednesday. So this past Saturday, I went. Um, it was Wednesday night. I had this 4 hour conversation with this one kid after coming back from dinner, and he had some key insights as well. But it wasn't just the key insights. Like I said, it was the fact that he was spending 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. That's 4 hours, right? 4 hours that he was spending time with me, wondering my decision. And one of the good things he did mention was the fact that, like, picture yourself on the bus, and you're driving away from USAFA, and you look out the rear window, and like, how do you feel? And like, obviously it's like you can't really give them an exact answer, because like I don't know how I'm gonna feel at that point. You can give you can put yourself in that place, and kind of imagine it, but it's like you can't really give them the full answer. And it was hard because obviously, like, I was gonna miss this place, and so, but I felt like, like I said, either option was gonna be a good option. um, and so it came down. I was Wednesday night, and I was 50-50 split. I went from 90% wanting to leave to now it's 50-50, each path, because I equally valued both at this time. And so now it's like, shoot, what do I do? You know, and really, like, what pushed me over the edge was waking up the next morning, and it was, this feeling of, it was just this feeling. But now, like let's break it down into, the reasons why I wanted to stay. The first reason, like I said earlier, was I didn't get to seek out all the opportunities. If you know what a sponsor family is, it's basically a family that lives near USAFA that basically adopts you as a cadet for the next 4 years, and you can go back to them and do all, go to their house, take a nap, do your laundry, get actual food besides this Mitch's BS. Um, and so yeah, I didn't seek out all opportunities. Like my sponsor family, just a sponsor mom. I have nothing on her, nothing against them, and I really liked being there. But the extenuating circumstances around it was, she lived pretty much at the 50-mile radius. You can only be 50 miles away from the academy, which made it to be like a 5 hour commitment for her. For a 2 to 4 day weekend, which is a lot. And she was also, there was no dad in the picture, so it was just her. Now, granted, there was an older brother, but he was also super busy as well. Like he was in the whatever. He was in the process of getting his like medical degree or something, or already got it, and he already got it now, and now he's working at this one place, but it's not the best hours. Like most of them are night hours, so it's obviously not the most feasible. And so yeah, I didn't want to be a financial burden on them or time burden on them, and um, so I didn't get to use my sponsor family as much as I wanted to, and especially during your freshman year, that it's really key because it maximizes your time off base, your time to decompress, your time to get actual food in your body, your time to get good sleep, because the sleep here isn't the best, and everything is made of concrete, so everything echoes. So I hope this thing records right. Otherwise, it's just gonna feel like a waste. So the opportunities, I didn't get to pursue any academic research opportunities. Didn't get to pursue any airmanship opportunities. Airmanship meaning soaring, like jumping out of an airplane, soaring like you're flying a glider, um, stuff like that. I never really made my dorm room my home. Like my sheets were never that comfortable. Um, Even though I had pictures up, like it wasn't, you know, all this homey vibe. Making your dorm room like your home is super important. Because like I said, you get to decompress, but it also resonates your values back to you, and makes you ready to get up the next day and attack the day. So those are just a few opportunities that I passed up on, but also like I said, being a freshman, you don't have as many opportunities as you do the next 3 years. Um, so that was a big thing, was the opportunities, and the second thing was the people, right? And I didn't totally understand it when I had some of the conversations of why I wanted to leave, especially the earlier on conversations of like, you got to invest in the people, you got to invest in the people. I was like, what the fuck? These people have never done anything for me. But it wasn't until a month later I realized, holy shit, some of these people are really amazing. And so these people reciprocated so much time and energy that I originally didn't feel like was reciprocated. Finally came back to me, and it really made me, you know, want to reinvest that into the people here and really make this place better culturally and just better in general. Because this place is hard, like no doubt about it. It's hard, but it's also like if you don't lean on the people, then like I said, it's gonna be even harder. And so yeah, that made me want to invest in the people, because of what they did for me, and I wanted to pursue Squadron Peer, which basically means that you're a mentor and you just give advice for people who are in your squadron, and it could be even be people out of squadron. And really, what wanted to make me be peer was two things. It was one, the impact that my supervisor had on me, and two, the impact that my squadron peer had on me. They both had huge impacts on me, and my supervisor, my second semester, because you have two, you have one your first, one your second, had a huge impact on me. Um, he actually, really cared for me, and like I said, invested in me. He checked up on me pretty much every day. Making sure I was, doing well, and he went out of his way to, get food for me off base, or even, sometimes we would just go off base together, or as a group and stuff, and that was super nice. And he was always looking out for me, and I try to repay that to the best of my ability. Like I would always be getting him cereal and milk from Mitch's, probably because that's the best food option. But he also likes cereal and milk. Fruit Loops, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Um, but we just had a really good bond and good thing going. And the same thing was for my peer, and so that really made me wanna become a peer and reinvest that time, and ultimately, like I said, make this place better. Um, because like if you change the incoming class, you can kind of change the future and the culture here. So yeah, me wanting to reinvest in the people was a huge reason why I wanted to stay. That was totally absent when I wanted to leave. And then the third thing was when I woke up on Thursday morning. That was the day I was supposed to leave. I was supposed to woke up at 6 a.m. and I was gonna leave at 9:30. So I had 3.5 hours. Basically, what I was supposed to do is I was walking to my squadron leadership office, the permanent party, which is basically just the um, officer or enlisted leadership at USAFA. Each squadron has 2 or 3 people for each squad. And so I was gonna walk in there, get my stuff signed, and then go to this other place, get my stuff signed, and then basically be done. Like I'm out, and I got to keep most of my uniforms. Um, and so I still had to clean up my wardrobe and throw a lot of my stuff out, including uniforms, which made it hard. But what made it even harder was when I landed upon my service dress. And if you don't know what a service dress you can look it up. It's pretty easy to see, and to look up. And basically, the first time I put it on, I was going to the airport. Going to the airport, and I felt super funky, super weird in it. Um, but it made me super super prideful, and it wasn't just the people thanking me, although that helps. Like it made me give me a sense for what I was actually committing myself to, and was doing something bigger than myself. I was committing to the country and the future, and literally laying my life on the line. And even as a cadet, we still don't get a taste of what it's like to be in the big Air Force. We're not enlisted, but it gave me a sense, right? A sense of what I'm about to do. Um, but it gave me, so going back to it, it gave me the ability that now I'm doing something greater than myself, and gave me something more than pride. And I don't even know how to describe it. I guess it's something more than pride, I guess. But it's a collectiveness of pride that you're doing something bigger than yourself. Um, and then to go on top of that, it's like I could never see myself throwing the service dress away, um, because I could never see myself not being in the military. Being in the military is a huge proponent of what I originally came here to do, and part of who I am is, I at least see, you know, being in the military is, being an American patriot. If you're not in the military, then at least in my terms, you're less an American patriot, and you can agree to disagree all you want. But that's just how I view things, and I also viewed it as, if I'm not in the military, I'm gonna be less of a man myself. Um, and so basically, like I wouldn't, looking, probably 20 years down the line, because I'm not even thinking about a girlfriend for the next 10 years. Um, But having a wife and kids, 20 years down the line, um, it's like, how would I, you know, what would they think if I passed up the opportunity to be in the military, regardless of the position, the political leaning, whatever the viewpoints are of the military right now? Like, I don't think people realize, like, it's not only do you not really have like I said, a political standpoint, like I said earlier, but you also can't really, voice your opinions on it. But you're doing something greater than yourself, and it's for the country, whether the country is in a state of something good or something bad. um, and that's what a lot of people like don't understand, is that, oh, I only want to be in the military if we're in a good state of mind, and a good, it's like it's the same mentality of you like you only joining something when the time is good, or it doesn't work like that. You can't just join something when it's in a good time, because ultimately what'll happen is, you're in this increasing time, and um, then you'll hit the crest, and then it'll come back down, and most of the times you'll end up worse off than you were. um, but yeah, like, I wouldn't want to have my wife and kids thinking I knowingly passed up an opportunity to serve my military. And so, yeah, I mean, that's really it. My three big reasons for staying. I know I went on a lot, and hopefully this is catching my audio. Otherwise, this is an hour wasted. um, but that's my story, and there's a lot of confusion because I told a lot of people, different details, different things, and I had to let a lot of, like, originally, like, I told people I was leaving, and now it's like I'm staying. And I'll tell you, the process right now is I have to fight to stay here. To fight to stay here, and a lot of people, I'm not gonna name names, but they weren't happy that I got so far in the Form 34 process. When I was literally about to leave, and I walked into my AMT, and I was like, I want to stay. And, it's not only does so what a lot of people won't understand is, not only do they have to do a lot of paperwork on their end, you know, they also have to, because I'm sending in basically a military letter to the superintendent explaining why I want to stay. It's not like, oh, now I get to stay, because I did, turn in all these things. There's this whole checklist of stuff to turn in and to do. So, like, right now, even though I don't have a lot of things, like, I don't have any sheets, don't have any towels, not getting paid, I don't have some of my uniforms, you know, all this other stuff that I had to do in order to be out processed, and now I'm going back on it. So now it's not only a burden on me, but it's, you know, and I feel bad because I kind of led them on a wild goose chase. No, obviously that wasn't purposeful. I really had this, second wind of wanting to be here and staying here. And now I have even a bigger drive to stay here and to really see it out. Um, but what a lot of people won't understand is, when I already had to send this basically military letter, MFR, up to the superintendent, which is basically, he's the top of the top at USAFA. He's a general. What is he, lieutenant general? And so 3-star general. And so my squadron permanent party. So my major in my squadron, we had a long conversation the day of, Thursday, when I wanted to leave, but on why I wanted to stay. And now, like, she asked to, explain why I should stay. And it makes it better that, I'm a cadet in good standing. I have a 3.3 GPA, 3.4 MPA. For those of you who don't know what an MPA is your military rating. Um, and I've done all these volunteer hours, and I don't have any negative paperwork on my profile or on my name. All I have is positive paperwork, which is it's not like rare, but it's rare to have only positive and no negative. Um, so that really helped my case, right, of me staying. Like if I was a cadet that's not in good standing, then I probably wouldn't have a strong case, and I'm still waiting back on the the decision, and hopefully I stay. But looking back on it, because I was so 50-50 split, it's kind of ironic, and I think it's good that it's not up to my decision to stay here or not. Um, like I said, I think I'll do good in any aspect of life just because of my ambition and drive. But it would be sad for me to leave. And I don't know how that would work for my next path, I guess, because it just gets a little finicky. But yeah, so like right now I'm in this limbo state, and I don't really know what to do, but I'm really just trying to make the best of each day, and trying to seek all the opportunities out as possible. And to not make the situation worse, on Thursday night there is this buy one get one free at Chipotle if you wear your uh, World Cup jersey to Chipotle. You would get a second meal free. And so me and my friend were well, he was at this one place on base, and I had his car, or his buddy's car. And so I had this. So we're given IM jerseys as cadets, which basically is like intramural jersey, and they don't look the best, but they don't actually look like, they're just like pennies. They're not really actual jerseys. And so I was gonna wear that. He gave me the brilliant idea to wear that, and it's like, yeah, all fun and games and stuff. And so I'm driving from this one place to get him, and I'm speeding. In fact, I was probably, they caught me a 62 and a 45, and I was probably like 68 and a 45. I was just able to manage to slow down before they got me. But it was kind of an unfortunate event because I was coming over this hill, and security forces, which is basically military police, was on the opposite side coming my way, and they had to have this scanner on automatic or something, because they probably had less than 2 seconds in order to pick me up on the radar. Um, and so I come over this hill and I see it. I'm like, oh. And so I try my best to slow down, and really, like, you know the speed limit on the base. So this was in a super uncongested area. It was right near the football stadium, 2 lanes with a median in the middle, and there probably wasn't a car in sight besides security forces. Um, and so it's a 45 mile per hour zone, but like low key, the road is designed for that of a highway at this point. Come over the hill, and somehow, like, I have probably 1.5 seconds before I pass them, and somehow they get a clock on me. Luckily, it's only 62 and a 45 compared to like 68. 68 would have been 23 miles per hour over as compared to 17. And so this, yeah, like I said, only makes the situation worse, because so basically, as soon as I see them, like in the stage of passing them, I see them put on their left blinker, and for like a split second, I'm like, why are they putting on their left blinker? Especially since there was no place to turn left behind me, because of the median. So there was no place to turn left. So puts on the blinker, literally gets on top of the median, driving on top of the median, turns the lights on. I'm like, oh, fuck. And then, I immediately pull over. And this is the first time I've ever gotten any sort of ticket or anything, violation of the law. And, it doesn't help that it was on base as well. 'Cause it's like if it's, you get a speeding ticket off base, it's just like you pay a ticket, you go on with your day. Um, so I get pulled over. Like as soon as she turns on the lights, I automatically pull over and stop. And so I end up getting a speeding ticket, 62 and a 45, and now I have to let my academic year permit party know that my squadron or my summer squadron permit party, and so it wasn't the best look. You know, the day I want to stay is the day the first time I slip up and get this on me, and now I don't know if I'll get any paperwork, but I was hoping to get have a clean track record here, and so yeah, that doesn't make it look good, and you know some people could say, oh, that's my sign to leave, and I think that's a loser mentality, is looking for signs to stay or leave somewhere, or looking for signs for some meaning in life. There definitely are signs, but I don't think that's one of them. It was super unlucky that happened. Like my buddy was he was speeding way above what I was before I got to where he was to pick him up, and yeah, it's so that's about all I have, and that's ultimately everything, you know consolidated down to the reason why I wanted to leave here, and why I want to stay. And I'm really, no, like I said, I'm in this limbo state, and yeah, but I get to do a lot with my time now that I'm in this super weird state. So yeah, but if you really watch to the end, I thank you for watching the whole thing. And this is like I said, the goal of this is to expand and create some sort of talk show. Um, so hopefully, in the next week or 2 weeks, I'll have something. And the goal originally was for it to be political, and obviously it can't be political in the military, so it's going to have to come from a more factual, non-biased, state that doesn't disrupt any policies or violations of anything. But either way, being able to voice something for the better is better of than someone just sitting there doing nothing with their life. So yeah, thank you for your time, and yeah,